the one. Okay. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
I'm happy to be
This has been how many years in the making? Actually a very long time in the making.
Yeah, it has.
Over a million times I have tried to restart the podcast because I was like, Gisele has to be on the podcast. Aww. And we finally made it. And it's in person. This was nearly online, imagine.
I know. It's nice to finally meet in person.
It's finally nice to meet in person. We've been online friends for a very long time. Parasocial relationships are a whole other bag of worms. But as for you, we're going to start with unpopular opinions. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Ooh, you go first.
I don't mind. What did I say I didn't tell you what mine was. Did I remember what mine is? Yes, I remember. Okay, my friends and I were talking about this earlier in the week. And we think it should be okay if you go to someone's house and pause. Let me add context. If you go to an African person's house and you haven't been offered anything within the first 20 minutes, it's okay to pause the conversation, just enter the kitchen and help yourself, because what are we doing? What are we doing? No! But
I really thought this was going somewhere.
You're like,
I thought I knew the direction. And
you're like, yeah, no.
I was like, I thought you were going to say it's okay to say no if they haven't offered you something in the first 20 minutes. When they do, you can be like, I'm okay. You know how it's hard to say no?
No.
But then you're like, nah, I would just go to the kitchen and help
I
myself.
should now be entering the kitchen. Like, anyway, would you like a glass of water too? Like, now that we're here.
But you know what? I actually like that. Because I feel like realistically, like if you came to my house,
yeah,
my mom would not even allow you 5 minutes.
As you're walking to go take a seat, what do you want? Drink, water, tea, coffee, things are coming out.
No, when she got the text that you're coming, everyone was awakened.
Literally.
Start cleaning the house.
The stove got hot. Like,
we've been in that kitchen for a minute. In fact, we have cleaned, we have scrubbed the floor, we've done everything we've done in a while. So by the moment you enter, it's time to serve you. Why would you?
You're ready. Yes.
So I think that's something that I really admire about my mom.
Yeah.
Actually, not even just my mom, my parents, both of them, they're really great hosts. Like,
yes. Yeah.
They're so good at welcoming people. And I don't think I ever realized how beautiful it was until I moved out of home. You know,
right?
And then when I go to people's house and they don't do that, and I'm like,
and you're sitting there like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it's fine for like other people, but I just feel like this is like a core staple in African culture, isn't it? Even when I go home to Zim, people will have nothing to give you, but they'll find something to give you if they have to go to like, if they have to go to the neighbor or like whatever it is, like they'll be like, oh, even just have tea. Like, we don't have a lot, but can we at least make you tea? Or like, it's a thing. And I'm like, I don't know why we're losing it.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good way
we need to bring it back.
I love that, actually.
So yeah,
I love that.
I come to your house and 20 minutes in, I'm going to your kitchen.
So you're going to have a clock. Tick, tick, tick. I'm like, oh, it's been...
if it gets to a point where I'm like, wait a minute. Like, it might not be a specific 20 minutes, but at some point I'll be like, why is my mouth dry? My jaw isn't moving.
Cups here, plates, something. Something is stuck in my throat. Why you make me a sandwich?
Honestly. So yeah, it's my unpopular opinion.
I love that. Mine is around education, which is very interesting because I've overdone education.
Yeah, she is reached the peak and some.
Someone once told me, they were like, when education goes to education, that's the level I've reached. So,
I love that. That is a huge compliment.
So I was like, so I think mine is around education, and it's around that. This is specifically in the Western world, where I feel like university degrees are not essential for a lot of career paths now.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because I feel like from the continent we're coming from, it's a deeply ingrained idea. Like, I remember, because I grew up, I spent parts of my childhood in Uganda, and I remember like, or even just before that, I was born in Rwanda, but then like even in Rwanda, for instance, my mom was a teacher, so she was very big on education.
Yeah,
like she was my tutor after school. Let me do bad in the test.
She said back to back.
My mom would sit me down like, hey, so you got 5 out of 20. What's that?
I love it.
Example.
Yeah.
But that's bad.
Wait, damn.
No, but truthfully, I remember I did fail like a French test because in my country at the time when I was a kid, our main kind of national language was French. Colonization, and so now they've changed it to English. Still,
still, I was like,
they're still always just dancing with Western languages. So it's a never-ending dance.
No, honestly.
But, like I remember when we used to learn French is hard.
I was gonna say I think it's okay to like fail French.
Yeah, like it was honest. I'm so glad that's one thing I'm grateful for leaving Rwanda because I'm so glad I didn't have to do my education in French because I don't think I would have been brilliant.
Bro, trying to do math and French like
no math. That's even my weakness. Ooh, dead.
No, yeah, I felt that. Yeah.
But I failed my French test. I think it was like a written thing, and my mom was so upset. She sat me down. She's like, "What's this?" And I was just so nervous. I just started crying. I'm like, "Mom, please." I go on my knees. I'm like, "Please help me. Please. I need to know how. I want to learn. I don't know how to do better."
I don't know how to do better. So real.
To be honest, I'm like, let me come clean.
I've tried everything.
I've tried it all. So like that kind of just paints a picture of how critical and how important education was.
Yeah.
And then moving to Uganda, going to school, like even just like the marketing around, the branding around school.
Yeah.
Education, success. Education is the key. All those really common lines. Education.
Unlock your future.
Oh my god! Like schools have those like one-liners or slogans.
Yeah, literally.
Like it is such a big thing, and so I think coming from that kind of background and now having gone through the entire education system from bachelor's degree to a master's to now a PhD.
Come on, did you hear that? PhD. I know that's right. You'll be a doctor.
No, I cannot wait for that. After the way I've suffered.
It's on a journey, yeah.
After the suffering that has happened, I need to. But now I'm very transparent with people that would like to do a PhD. Like I tell them the truth as it is because I've learned.
Okay, here's my thing. People who do PhDs are like people who get married. You know how you hear people, married people talking about marriage is hard. It's so hard. That is people doing a PhD. I'm like, damn, are we all, you're not making it enticing for the rest of us.
Oh my god, this comparison, I don't know how I feel about it because I'm like, now I'm always like anti people that say marriage is hard. I'm like, that's your own.
That's your own, yeah. But is that not your Let me show you.
Now you made this comparison. I'm like, hang on, you need to reevaluate.
Yeah. You feel it, genuinely.
Damn. Okay. Okay. To be honest, I think that a part of what's made it difficult is because I think in academia in general, I don't think there's a lot of good teachers. People who can teach you how to do things.
I think that's a really huge distinction because aren't the people who end up helping you just other people who've done PhDs? So not everyone went into it to be a teacher or to mentor anyone. They just went into it for themselves and maybe for their love of research or whatever specialty they got into. And then now they're thrust into this thing where it's like, okay, every now and again we'll give you little mentees. And they're like, I don't really care. I don't want it.
You come in checking, you're like, help me. You're like, figure it out.
You got the internet.
Internet. So I think it's just with like anything. Let's say you went into a workplace and you had good training. You had people that showed you what needed to be done, how it needed to be done. I feel like I'm a good learner. Yeah. If you teach me how to do something, I will. And once I catch on it, I will do it and even do it better. Yeah. Because you've given me the foundation of where to start. Yeah. And I feel like what's made my PhD journey is that foundational part. Yeah. Where I feel like from the beginning, from my master's level, in terms of the kind of support that's provided, the master's in itself, the PhD in itself, is all so vague and confusing. And I recently, just this semester actually, it's coming to an end now. I was teaching a research unit, and like these are master's students who've done like their undergrad degrees, but it's around teaching them how to do research. Yeah. And I actually realized, I'm like, oh my god, I actually love this. This makes it so fun. I want to redo it. But we had a few students come up to us and like, tell us that, this has been so useful. I feel like it's demystified my perspective of what research is. Yeah. And so you guys have made it so fun and so interesting. Like I want to actually do more research. Yeah. I'm like, oh.
Thank you. You're like, thank you.
Nice. And I'm like, that's what it is though. Yeah. Because even I was like, if I had done this unit myself before going into research, I would have felt better about the journey. Expanding on the fact that I think in the Western world now and the way the world is going, I feel like, especially there are specific areas where a degree is critical. Yeah. And I think there are specific areas.
Like medicine.
Yeah, exactly. Those kind of specialized areas. But when it comes to like a lot of other careers like marketing, business, a lot of other parts of society that are functioning, I've met so many people in roles who tell me, oh, I didn't go to uni, or I studied this thing, or I studied that. Yeah. And then when I hear a little bit more about their journey, they started volunteering here, or they did an internship there, or they did this there, and then they end up in that position. Yeah. So it's never kind of a linear path, whereas I feel like we grow up, our parents making it seem like it's a linear path. And honestly, I can't blame them. They don't know any better. So they haven't grown up.
That's what they were told.
That's what they're told. Like they go to school. We talked about the slogans. Education is the key.
Unlock your future. I love that one.
All those liners. And so they feel like once you get your degree upon degree upon degree, you should be now.
You should be good. You should be set up.
Jobs should be lining up for me.
People should be seeking you out.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's not the case. It comes down to like how you put yourself out there, who you know, and like there's a lot of people that get jobs through those kind of things, through networking things, and I think that's a big thing that we need. I think as a community, we need to really work on our social capital, and kind of creating spaces for networking and meeting people who are in positions to actually give us work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking yesterday when I went to the event, the African event, we had a panel of young girls who were talking about uplifting the next generation, which is a beautiful panel. I won't talk about. Let me not talk.
I don't have lawsuit money. I always like to tell my guests, I don't have lawsuit money. Don't do it. You're on your own.
I was gonna talk about like. Let me just focus on the conversation. The conversation was beautiful, but it made me think a little bit about something that. I haven't thought about this in too much detail, but it's just the thought that came to my mind last night. I think too much, so this might
I love it,
be a passing thought. But it was just around like I see a lot of people who are doing a lot of advocacy work, which I think is beautiful.
I think I know where this is going.
I just wonder, like, can we? Like, I want to see us go beyond. I don't know if by default. And I can't blame us because we find ourselves in a position we need to advocate for ourselves. Yes. So we're all studying this advocacy there, this advocacy there, this advocacy there. But there's not money in this advocacy stuff. Yeah. And sometimes there's not strategy on how to make money from this stuff. How to make it maybe the better word is how to make it sustainable. Because if you have a brilliant idea and you want to build that into there's a lot of successful nonprofit organizations doing great work. And so I feel like what I see from an outside perspective, there's a lot of really beautiful, things that are happening in the community, but it's not structured in a way to support the people that are running it, to do it long term, to be successful and sustainable in those roles. Yeah. So it becomes like this little side thing you do here, and then you gotta go back to your actual job,
to your 9 to 5.
And I'm like, I feel like I want to see more. I want to see people who have like real jobs. Yeah. And not this is not to disrespect the people that are doing the advocacy. I wanna like maybe a better way to put it.
Go on.
No, I want a light to shine on people with jobs. Yeah. Like jobs that we aspire to get into. Yeah. Because I feel like that is sending out, because I feel like when you see a lot of that advocacy stuff, now everybody wants to be an advocate. Yeah. And now it becomes a competition who is doing the most
advocacy work.
But it's like we're all just advocating and still.
There's nothing. I agree. That has been my pain point this year. Yeah. At some point I was like, oh, we need representation, we need advocacy, and then at some point I was like, Okay, so we do all of that, but if we don't have structures and systems in place,
Uh-huh.
what are we doing?
go?
We're actually just chasing our tail. Like,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this?
Yeah.
How does this become sustainable? How do we
Yes.
affect the change that we're saying we want?
Exactly.
At some point, you have to stop talking and just get the work done.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my unpopular opinion. That was yours, so I'm not chiming in.
Let's get real jobs. Let's get the
Let's
money.
get real
Let's aim high. Like, let's
Yeah.
go hard or go home.
Ish.
That's what I would say.
On that note, we're gonna beautifully segue into.
So how to go home. I don't mean in Africa. So
That's what I thought you meant. I was like, say less. One way to get back to Zimbabwe.
People in Africa, beg, don't disrespect us. People
Oh my
back home need
gosh.
uplifting, not.
They do, and also not because. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day.
You keep diverting. I'll let you speak.
Okay,
Okay.
the conversations.
Yes.
We've had such a long conversation already. But please tell the audience, who is Gisele?
Okay. I feel like the answer to this question is ever changing.
Yes, as it should be.
Yeah, I think it's ever changing. But as of now, so when you ask me
I love
in the
it.
future, I'll have a different answer. But as of now, I would describe myself as someone who is, I guess, starting off with just the essence of the things that drive me. A big part of it is I am deeply passionate about creating spaces for people who come from marginalized communities to have a voice.
Yeah.
And a big part of it as well, I guess I always see a lot of the advocacy work that people do is a reflection of something they also in themselves are trying to work on, or they feel like they haven't had access to it, or they found some sort of access and they're like, oh, I want other people to kind of come into this and figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And so I think a big part of where this passion comes from is growing up in this country and feeling like I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And I mean, there have been times when I found myself in positions where I had a voice,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And so in me having that passion is that I'm figuring out, what does it look like to have a voice? What does it look like to be authentically yourself?
Yeah.
And to actually express that to the world and let people kind of be able to tap into the greatness that's in you.
Oh, come on.
And so, yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like, it starts from that space for myself where I'm figuring those things out for myself, but then simultaneously also doing things that allow me to kind of, I think both of them are this kind of evolving projects.
Yeah.
So at the core is that passion to kind of create spaces, hear more marginalized voices, which for me at the moment, which is translating through my research.
Yes.
Where
Please do share. Yes.
where I am doing a PhD research project, postdoctorate research study, exploring. I've always been interested in my experience coming to Australia at a young age. I came to Australia when I was about 12 years old, and then growing up in this kind of very different environment that I had a very different perspective before arriving, and then kind of experiencing a different reality coming here.
Yeah.
And so through that experience, there's so many different things that I experienced that I didn't really know I didn't have the words for.
Yeah.
I didn't have the understanding to articulate what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And so my research is really trying to understand experiences of Black African young people in Australia. And I started this in my master's when I did my study focusing on refugee young people in Western Australia, trying to understand their journey of coming from a refugee camp and then or refugee backgrounds and coming to Australia, and their journey of becoming, their journey of navigating their own traumas, and their journey of identity formation, their journey of finding their sense of belonging in different spaces in society, their journey of finding their voice really. And I loved it. I really enjoyed that time of my research. Overall, I loved it, but it also had its own challenge. I think it was very emotionally draining and mentally heavy. And I don't think I understood those things at the beginning until I started to physically feel it. And I only have the words now. Then I just kind of, brushed it off.
Just
and
kept
pushing
going.
through.
Yeah.
And so from that experience, I got an opportunity to kind of expand that research and continue to explore those experiences. So hopefully once I finish the PhD, God, please hear my prayers. When I finish the PhD, I would love to kind of go back to those experiences in Western Australia and now to the experiences here in Sydney.
Yeah.
And kind of look at how, and maybe see like how I can I guess I'm trying to understand the different facets of these experiences.
Yeah.
And trying to understand our story.
Yeah.
At the same time, trying to understand my story, because my research specifically is an autoethnography.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like I'm writing from, like I'm owning my positionality as an insider, but at the same time as an outsider of this community.
Yeah.
So I'm intentionally exploring how the themes I'm exploring, how they impact me, or how I can relate to them, or kind of applying my interpretation as well.
Yeah.
And so seeing how that kind of works together. And so hopefully the desire is to be able to get better to understanding our journey and finding the words to understand our transition and how we've experienced all these different experiences in different spaces, and how we've thrived or struggled, and what kind of strategies can we put in place to support the next generation, whether they're migrating to Australia or they're growing up in this country. Because I find that across the board, a lot of our experiences are quite similar.
Yeah.
Especially if you've come here at a young age, the journey of identity crisis is, up the roof.
It's intense.
Intense. You're having to imagine who you are and create a version of yourself. But let's not even talk about your sense of belonging in this country that's already complex in its own ways. So that's kind of my interest in research. But before I moved to Sydney, a lot of my work was around community. Like I think in Perth, I was very involved in community work, specifically on youth advocacy work. But then my mentor told me,
oh no.
She was like, Gisele, you are no longer a youth.
What is the cutoff age for youth?
25. Can you imagine?
Who came up with that?
Australians.
Why? Is there research to back this
I don't
up?
understand, because, but that's their perspective. That's
what I'm saying.
In my research,
I'm used to that.
35 is where I'm cutting the number off. So
thank you. I'm with you. We're still youth.
Because we're youth. So
exactly.
We are young for a long time.
Period. I'm with you. Still got 9 more years of my youth.
But I think what she was trying to do for me is actually challenge my thinking, because I was sort of stuck in this space and I was not growing out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the advocacy thing we're talking about. She's like, Gisele, I need you to think strategically. Think about your future. Think about what you want to do. Do you want to do this forever? Because there's a lot of people in this space that are doing the same things. And you're all fighting in this small space. Be creative. You're brilliant. Think outside the box.
Yeah.
So when she started to challenge that perspective, or even, I think she was also trying to get me to like, how can you stop thinking about yourself as the youth, maybe think about your position now as an adult, and what can you contribute to the youth?
Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's, in a way, I think I've applied it in the research that I'm doing
100%.
now, where I'm not kind of coming in from that ground out perspective.
Yeah.
I'm kind of now coming in as a researcher and trying to find ways to understand our experiences from a research perspective and kind of contribute to that kind of research realm in that way. So that was a long answer for who I am.
No, that was a beautiful culmination of everything. I think actually.
But also creative.
Yeah, I was like, you didn't. I was about to call you out for missing that out. I was like, you're definitely a creative.
The PhD has like choked the creativity out of me.
I think it's because you're using your creativity differently in your, like, it doesn't look like how it looked previously. You didn't think so?
I need to indulge in that view, I think, but
I think so.
I think you might be onto something.
I think we're used to creativity looking like camera, paintbrush, whatever. But I think of like the research that's out there. And I think you have to be very creative to come up with some of the ideas and things that people have, and even how they're doing the research. Like listening to your research topic, there's a million ways that could have been researched, but the perspective that you've gone for and how you've just like, that is creativity. Unfortunately, it doesn't give fun because it's not like bright, colorful. It's not sexy. It's like, it's very studious. It's very together. So it doesn't feel like sexy creativity, but that's creative.
This is enlightening. Wow,
you got
my research is a creative person.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's why I was even drawn to autoethnography as a methodology to use for my study, because I loved the idea of having to also reflect on my experiences through the experience. So, and I love storytelling. Because I feel like I think that's one of the biggest tools that we have to tell stories, because we're sort of cut off from our communities where we can draw knowledge and experiences from and learn from, whether it's just socially as well. We're cut off from those spaces. And so we need a lot of spaces to hear stories and share stories and get to know how things are done, or how they've been done, to learn from each other. And so I think that's where my love for stories comes from. And you're right. I think my creativity is taking a different form.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think at the beginning of the PhD, I gave up a lot of my creative things.
Yeah.
I just, like, if you see the way I was dressing,
it's not true. You remember, it's like, if every day-to-day tasks are taking up my time. I am wearing black tights and a black shirt, and we're leaving the house.
You know, at the beginning, I was like, maybe I want to film my journey during the PhD. But the way those outfits were, like, you will not catch me. You will not catch me. This will not be evidence. No.
This will not be immortalized.
I'll put the camera in the mirror. I'm like, no, not today. Today we're not filming. It's okay. It's okay.
I love that. Right? Like, let's get to work. Oh, that's hilarious. One thing that you said that I want to speak about, because it's been something that I've been reflecting on this year, as I've worked with a lot more like primary and high school aged African students in the last couple of years. Yeah. So I was coming from Townsville in Queensland, which a lot of the Africans there, up until I'd say in the last like 7 or 8 years, were like economic migrants. So the makeup of the town, and I guess the problems that we were facing as youth was completely different to now where I've moved to Melbourne. And I feel like their history in Melbourne and in Australia as a community is a lot longer than what I'd say a lot of us who lived in Townsville/Queensland, I almost want to say, but keep it Townsville, were, and I think it's a lot more complex. And so the problems and challenges that I'm seeing the students face in Melbourne is so completely different. And even just the community, I'm like, whoa, we are all Africans in Australia, but we have completely different stories and experiences and challenges. So I guess I just wanted to know like what you're seeing without, I guess, I don't know if it gives away some of your research, but what you've observed between the work you did with in your masters and with the community in Western Australia and now
in Sydney.
Yeah, in Sydney.
Wow, I love that question, because I feel like I think that's something that's where I think why this kind of work is important, to have those different perspectives, because I think generally on a mainstream perspective, we're all put under one umbrella. Yeah. We're all Africans, and if we fall, we fall together. If we rise together. Yeah. And so, but what that then does, it kind of steals away a lot of our individual stories. Yeah. And it kind of suppresses so much of our differences and all these, and I think it's really beautiful to be able to see how different African people have experienced life, how they're navigating now, and to kind of show the complexities and the differences. Yeah. Because then it even goes back to the way that we think about solutions for the problems that we're experiencing. It's not one size fits all. Yeah. Because we have young people who need someone to help them aspire to go to university. You have young people who are already at university, they're thinking they need someone to show them what kind of workplace they could get into. Yeah. So we have different kind of people at different levels of confidence and different levels of what they can do or have access to. And so I've definitely seen the differences for sure, because my initial research was with young people from refugee backgrounds who I could intimately relate to, because I came to Australia as a refugee. And so these were my homies. Like, I'm like, I get you.
We're the same, we're together.
But even then I realized the difference, because something that I realized in my process of interviewing my participants was that because I was African, because I had a refugee background, I made an assumption that we had a lot of similarities. But in speaking to them, some of them were born in a refugee camp. Yeah. And all they've ever known is a refugee camp. Yeah. And then from there, they were born in a refugee camp outside their country of birth. Yeah. And then they come to Australia. And I remember one participant told me when she would be asked, "Where are you from?" She's like, well, I was born in Tanzania, but I'm actually Burundian. But Burundian, because that's where my parents are from. Yeah. So it's this really complex story. Whereas from my experience, I've never been in a refugee camp from a space where I can remember. You know, I left my country when I was like 5 years old, and then lived in Uganda as refugees, but we were in a refugee camp.
Yeah.
We may have had our struggles, but it was nothing close to a refugee camp experience.
Yeah.
And so coming to Australia and talking to these young people, I realized like the differences in our experiences. Like some people would tell me stories about, you know, how their parents ran from war and ran to refugee camps in Kenya, and how they grew up in a refugee camp going to school and playing with other kids. And I'm like, whoa, that's different. And the danger of the assumption that we have such similar experiences is that sometimes it even disables us to hear these sort of differences. Because then, because the level of trauma that I have is nothing close to someone who's actually been in a war and has seen things and has experienced traumatic things in their lives. Like my trauma is slightly different. I think I've had quite a privileged childhood. Now that I've spoken to different people, I'm like, my gosh, actually,
it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I take it back.
Not say the same because they've actually been in war. But I think what I've been exposed to is nothing as traumatic as some of the people that I spoke to.
Yeah.
And so, like when I would speak to them, and sometimes I would make assumptions of what they mean. You know, because I'm like, they'll say something, I'm like, oh my God, I get that. You know, and then, because this was my first time interviewing people. So, you know, so I was taking it as like this kind of casual conversation.
Like conversational, this is great. Yeah.
But I guess in a way, it's kind of revolutionary. It's kind of like a decolonial perspective of doing research. I think like, when I think about the research process, it's very westernized, very colonial, very like, you tell me your story.
I'm so passionate about that.
You know, let me study you, let me understand you. Whereas I think I was doing it in a very relational way. Yeah. But I wish I was aware of these things that I know now, because I could have really played off that relational way and get more out of the interviews. Yeah. But I think, because I will record for about 30 minutes, and the interviews the questions that I put down, we're all done with them, turn it off, and then we'll go into deeper conversation. And I'm like, where was this? Where was all this?
What was this one we're asking you? It's going to be in the recording.
You know, I need this. You know, and I think that kind of thing goes back to that colonial perspective when it comes to methods that you use in your research. Yeah. Well, in this experience, when I turn off the recorder, we're no longer serious. We're no longer this really structured thing. Yeah. We're just having a conversation. Then I realize how unique their experiences are, how different their experiences are. And so coming from that lens, and then coming to Sydney and dealing with kind of young people who come from families where their parents migrated to study, migrated to work, very different experiences.
Completely.
Like the level of identity crisis amongst young people coming from refugee backgrounds is actually very different to the identity crisis that young people are experiencing who come from like those sort of families. Yeah. I find that there's a deeper sense of cultural identity in these young people. There's a sense of confidence about them. There's a sense of security about who they are. And they're very much more aware of the kind of political complexixities that are prevalent in like a Western society because their parents have talked to them about these things. Yeah. And so, because their parents have probably experienced it at work, you know, in their schooling, and so they are aware, and they've found some mechanisms and strategies of how to deal with it they can pass on to their kids. Whereas young people from these refugee backgrounds, their parents are already trying to rebuild their life from ground up. They don't have time to have these sort of conversations. Yeah. But also, as a refugee, you tend to suffer from this gratitude vibe where you're so grateful
for everything and so grateful to
my God, you kiss white people's feet. Because you're like,
thank you for what you've done for
me. I'm grateful to be here. If it wasn't for you, I would be dead.
Yeah. You know? No, actual.
And the danger in that kind of overly grateful vibe is that sometimes it stops you from thinking about your contribution in this country. Yeah. And sometimes it's also a hindrance to your empowerment, because I actually experienced this in my research. Yeah. When I was first writing about racism in my literature review, I struggled to write about racism because I felt like I was betraying Australia.
What?
Yeah. I was like,
say more. I'm like speaking to you. I don't get that vibe.
And this is some of the differences. So I was like thinking, oh my God, this country, they brought me here, and then I now have the opportunity to go to school and have an education. Who am I to critique if they're racist towards me?
They're nice. No, they're nice. They open doors.
They open doors for me. Yeah. Why am I coming here and just keep questioning, and and I remember struggling through my chapter. My supervisors were like, why are you being so nice? Like, I want you to get a little bit deeper, be explicit about the things that you're saying. I was very vague.
Oh my goodness.
And I was very kind of general and trying to point a finger elsewhere and trying to justify things, because I generally internally felt like I was betraying this country that had been so good to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that me coming here and being empowered and actually contributing meaningfully to this country was like, I think I had a different perspective of what that looked like. And so, that just looked like me being a good citizen, doing good, and just praising them for
all they done,
all the time. But, through that experience, I started to really reflect back, and I'm like, ooh, I have this internalized inferiority that I really need to tackle.
Yeah.
That I really need to undo and think about, how do I step out and speak not from an arrogant perspective, but in a way that's constructive to the community that I'm a part of, as a way of making it better for myself, but for also people around me. Yeah. So to kind of bring it in a close, because I'm going.
No, you've taken this exactly where I wanted you to. We're good.
And so I think that even just this sort of few stories that I've told around this, it's just already showing you the complexities in our stories and how different that they are. Yeah. And which then goes back to like how we think about solutions and how to uplift our communities, the kind of strategies that we implement, and the kind of people that we're supporting. And so we have such vast different experiences. And this is why it's important for us to document them and understand them so that we can actually meet the needs of the people, because sometimes we can so focused on the most vulnerable amongst us, and then we don't realize the ones who are close to being vulnerable until it's too late and it's on the news, and the media has run with it and has made up a story about us, and then we're like, oh, we got to deal with that. And so I think that's the beauty of kind of capturing, and I think that's why I love what you're doing and talking to different people. You're capturing these sort of different complex stories and you're humanizing us. It's dignifying, and I think that's the beauty of creating this sort of platforms. It's actually dignifying because it's giving people an opportunity, like, your story matters. And the perspective that you share is so different and so beautiful in its own way. There's some lessons, there's some triumphs, there's some things you've overcome, that you've gone through, that we can learn from. So I think that's generally what I think I've known. There are clear differences. We're not like a homogeneous group.
Yes, I mean, we've never been a homogeneous.
Never. Even look at the continent of Africa. How many
literally
so many countries. Then we come here like we are now all under one umbrella. We are now Black African. Which I have my ideas around. That title. That kind of umbrella of identification. I mean.
Sidesbar part. How do you feel about sub-Saharan African in the use of that terminology in literature? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't being sensitive. Because I was like, what does this mean? What do you guys... And they use it everywhere. I'm like, I would like to know what we mean by this. Can we...
I think with the sub-Saharan is just to exclude the northern countries who... I'm trying
He's like, who,
Okay. Oh gosh, how can I? You see, I've used this term in my research too, but it goes back to the how-to and also having the right. Having researchers who've done that decolonial work themselves, who can question your assumptions, because it goes back to even just using words like developing and developing countries, because words are important, but we use them all the time, and sometimes I think we find a word, and this tends to happen in research. They find a word, they're like, you use that, reuse.
We love it,
and we run with it. And we don't get the opportunity to deconstruct it, question it. I think at the stage we're at, given that our, African people in Australia have only kind of become like a growing population in the last 30 years. I think we are going to have this for quite some time. We are going to have words that don't truly define us. We are going to have these sort of umbrella words that try to put us into like one big box so we can understand our issues or I say issues because research tends to look at that deficit perspective, unfortunately. And so I feel like sometimes they put us under that umbrella to be able to kind of, we have similar experiences, similar so we can talk about you guys from that perspective.
From that, yeah.
You know, and so it goes back to having researchers who have done that decolonial work, who can critique words, who can question those words, and who can put meaning and introduce new words. But that's going to take time.
Some time, yeah.
It's going to take more researchers coming onto the table.
That's what I was going to say. Part of this episode is advertising, even though she did say doing a PhD is hard. But we need more people doing research. I think one of the things I'm so passionate about is how young of a population the African community is in Australia. And we really have the privilege that we get to see what's happened in America and what's happened in the UK. Yes. And we can learn from that. And that can even influence the kind of research that we're doing early on now for the kids later down the line. So I'm like, if you love music and you want to talk about the music that's coming out of the African artists in Australia and what that looks like and what it sounds like and what history and cultures are influencing that, we're not looking at it from a deficit where it's like, oh my gosh, what's happening with our kids, they're dying. But it's like you're actually adding to the culture and helping to be on a world stage, hey, this is who we are, this is what we look like, this is what we sound like, this is what we're producing.
You know what I mean? I want us to reach a level of privilege where people can do research about breakdancing.
You are controversial. Why?
No, to be honest, it takes. I remember when this story came out, I was like, "Damn, I need to get to this level of privilege."
Yeah.
I need to start getting to this level of privilege where I can take such a small part of life that I'm not an expert on.
No, don't even desire to respect.
I can just become an expert in it. Okay, it doesn't have to be the way that certain people do it.
Yes.
But, it can be done in a clever, creative way. But I feel like it takes some level of privilege to be able to start thinking like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I feel like, like what you said, we do need more researchers. We do need more people to do PhDs about other interesting things about the African experience, not about our suffering and how we're so broken and we're just,
lost.
Australia is just killing all of us, blah, 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 blah. But thinking about what I've actually really enjoyed about my current research now is how much I've been so inspired by my participants because the level of culture that they have, the level of intentionality to connect with their culture that they've got is beautiful. The intentionality to learn their language, oh my God, the cultural pride, the intentionality to travel back home and kind of engage and kind of learn about their culture a little bit more. It's been just tremendous, and I think I can see the differences between the two cohorts that I've studied so far because I'm seeing this one group that's really empowered. Or they have their own complex issues, but I can see so much resilience and so much empowerment in them that I'm like, oh my God, this is impressive. This is really good. This is really beautiful. They actually have developed mechanisms to support themselves in this space. And then we have spaces that are trying to figure out how do we help young people. But you have spaces that are doing it really well. Yeah. That have literally, kind of constructed really safe communities that empower their young people. Yeah. So I think there's an opportunity when we start to have those complex, different stories, we can learn what's happening, what's working here in Australia, where are people feeling that sense of belonging, and what can we learn from those spaces? Because my study specifically focused on a church community. Yeah. And so, what's really funny, because what's really interesting, because I attended a church back in Perth, but it was a majority white church. Yeah. And so coming to a majority African church was a very different experience for me. And I think a part of it was my own, colonial perspective. Where I had to be oh my God, I need to stop thinking like this. I need to kind of let go of what I expect. That actually needs to be researched, because I feel that I came from a majority white church and now I go to a majority African church, and there was a lot of things that I just had to shed, because I was like, where did this come from, and how did I allow that to sneak into my thinking? It's sneaky. So seeing how that one space, the amount of events that they've got, they've got they'll do walks for people's fitness. They'll do morning teas to raise money for breast cancer. They would do what actually really drove me to this particular church was that during lockdown at the peak of BLM, they held a conversation in collaboration with other churches around the place of the African diaspora in the midst of BLM.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, woo!
What? We love it. Christians who think,
you know
a concept.
I mean? I was like, this is, I won't comment on the quality of the conversation, but
you had to go there.
we gotta start somewhere though. When you have these kind of structures, you know, it's already creating those spaces for those difficult, complex, interesting conversations that people can take it to another level.
Yeah.
You know, and so they have parenting sessions.
Yes.
They have, you know, they have such a variety of so many different things that my old church didn't have. But that's because they really have kind of tried to meet the needs of the community that they have. And I think they even had like a career expo thing where they had people in the church who have different careers come and speak to young people. I'm like,
I love that. Yeah.
This is impressive work. Yeah. Because I was recently going through just like their different posters and trying to kind of, critically think about what that represents and what that would look like outside of a church setting and how we don't actually necessarily have programs like that.
Do you do this for fun? I was like, no, like, wait, you were just scrolling through the chat just for...
This is part of my research.
Okay, I was like, this is downtime, like pre-bedtime.
My brain is always working. This is what I hate about the PhD. No time off.
Okay, it was part of the research. Okay, as you were, yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. If you could think about some of these programs and replicate them, because not everybody goes to a church and not everybody's part of a church community. Yeah. You know, and so, or even just for our settlement programs that are already, present. Yeah. Thinking about how they can implement some of these things in the way that they structure their programs will be really useful. Because these are real needs that parents need support in raising their kids. Yeah. You know, raising their kids in a different culture context. What does that look like? You know, and you don't have none of this stuff.
No, you don't.
I've worked I think I've been part of developing a settlement program agenda type of thing. And, there were some really interesting things that were raised, but I just remember thinking, this is not very specific to the community I care about. That I am a part of. Not that I don't care about other communities, but communities that I can confidently speak on and I kind of can represent a particular perspective that may be useful for that community. And so, and this tends to be the case across the board. I think, like, during this work that I was doing, I remember one of the things that I pointed out in one of our strategic meetings was that when we would get like a project to work on, we would always look at the top 10 demographics. And Africa is never going to show no African country to make it to the top 10 because we don't have those
statistically
numbers.
No, we don't.
And so if this is what they're just focused on, that top 10, at what point are our needs going to be addressed? Yeah. At what point are we going to be part of the conversation? Never.
Literally never.
It's going to take years.
Decades to repopulate to that level.
Until we do
and with the way black men like to date, are we ever going to repopulate? So to put that out there. As you were.
Oh gosh. And so we've got it comes and I think that's the challenge as well with a lot of these government things. They want the numbers. Is this going to be reaching a certain number of people? But indigenous population that don't have the numbers, but we talk about their issues. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then I hate that we talk about their issues because I feel like it's because it's so bad that we have to really
That's what I was going to say. But it's because they have numbers in the... Like when we talk... Because I feel like even with the African community, we'll talk about issues that concern us when it's the areas where we're overrepresented in. So it's not like it's anything good. Like now it's like, okay, you guys have the numbers here, so I guess we'll talk about your needs and what we can do to stop it. But only to the extent that it will help fix this problem over here, not to look at it as like a holistic kind of approach and like what wraparound services and programs. And
like thinking strategically ahead.
Yeah.
How do we think ahead that we can kind of start to map out what we wait for the worst case scenario and then we get up and we do something. I'm like, well, that's
prevention.
We're always reacting and so we never have sustainable long-term solutions that can actually be useful and actually empower communities to go above and beyond what we can achieve as a community. And so I think it's a complex issue. I mean, when I raised it in the conversation, a good thing that, our CEO did, he did acknowledge it, and he did say it is a complicated thing. And I think, I love this workplace because I feel like they listened to my contribution, and it became something that they started to think about. How can we start to be a little bit more strategic and in kind of including African countries, whether maybe we take a different statistical approach instead of looking at the numbers, but starting to focus on the problems, or finding different ways to kind of be inclusive. But I mean, this is the work of inclusion.
Is it
it's work.
Is that what's happening?
I mean, to some extent it is. I mean, I remember one time I was at a bus stop and I was talking to this stranger. We just started talking to each other.
This is very on brand.
We're on the train, and so and then she was like, she was being like doing the right thing a white person can do, which is being like, I'm so sorry that you have to explain yourself. I'm so sorry that you have to do these things. I'm so sorry that you have to feel that way. And I was like, I know the intentions are good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm not against the fact that I have to do this, because yes, it's tiring. Yes, it's frustrating. But this kind of work is necessary. It's kind of like being in a relationship. You cannot just come in and then just sit there and think, oh, we are just going to work out.
Yeah.
We both
I like that analogy.
Work.
Yeah.
We both do the work.
Yeah.
I need to do the teaching. You need to do the learning.
Yeah.
I need to learn about, I mean, we kind of already have been, taught about the Western world. It's in our DNA.
Yeah.
We know that.
We know you guys.
We don't need to be taught. So it's more like, we need to do the hard work of understanding ourselves and our complex stories and being able to communicate them to other people. And then other people need to have the willingness to also learn. This is the work of inclusion. Yeah. And it's ongoing. It's hard work on both ends.
Yeah. I like that perspective.
Yeah, 'cause I was like,
when you started there, I was like, I don't know when she's taking this. I like that.
So I feel like when people say, I'm sorry that you have to do this, I'm sorry that you have to do that. I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. Let's stop apologizing. Let's just do the work.
Let's just get to work.
Maybe what you do now is listen, learn, apply. Yeah. Don't just listen and be like, oh, I'm so sad.
I think that's where the white guilt thing kind of gets boring, because you're like, oh my God, how many people have you apologized to? Have you actually done like other work outside of apologizing?
Apply that in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Question your bias. Start to do the work.
Yeah.
And because I'm doing the work every day by force.
Yeah. I have to clock in every day whether I want to or not.
Yeah, exactly.
The moment I wake my eyes is wake up clocking
my conscious kicks in. I'm like, I walk into a room, I'm like, now I gotta be my self.
Literally, my polished what y'all like.
When I work out, I gotta now be relax.
I can breathe.
Let's be African. Let's be
I love it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I think the work is, because I think it gets complex when we talk about this kind of work, because it comes down to like the mental health and the burden that it puts on a person. But realistically, it's gonna have a toll on you. Yeah. Like for sure, I think but I think when you're aware of what you're doing, you can kind of develop some strategies on where to draw the line. Yeah. It's like, here I can show up and fight, but I'm like, actually, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I have nothing.
It's not every room I can show. Yeah. That's a big lesson. It's not every room and every situation I can show up in and fight or advocate or whatever. Yes. And so you have to pick your battles. Like, pick your battles. This is an area I'm more than happy to walk into and fight till, well, the saying is blow in the face, but I don't go blow in the face.
Like, have a bad day and you don't want to be, a gangster in that way. So, you don't want to be educating people. You're tired because you're human. And that's okay. Because especially in this era of social media, I feel like there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure to perform advocacy. Yes. Like if something is going on and you put yourself out there as an advocate person, why are you not making a comment? Now you have to speak on everything. Now why you're not making a comment? So now silence speaks volumes. And all these manipulative things. I'm like, I beg, chill. No. Relax. You don't know me. You don't know my personal life. You don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know what I stand for, really, quite frankly.
And you don't know what people are going through.
That too, yes.
You don't know the kind of positions that they're in, because something that I've experienced. You know how we talk about, bringing people, having a sit at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I find that sometimes organizations do this and give
The conversation is so boring.
a sit at the table.
Yeah.
And then silence you.
Yeah.
Or disempower you. They empower you, but then disarm you.
Yeah.
So you have this big position where you're known as this person. And then when it comes to actually making the real change that you could possibly make in your position, you can't. Because you're told, oh, no, that's not what
no, that doesn't work. No, policy says, no, you need to, And now it's like, so why am I here?
Attacking people and be like, why are you not speaking up? You're in this position. You should be saying this. I'm like, you don't know the kind of pressures behind the scenes that this person is navigating.
Yeah.
Or you don't know the kind of family things that are going on in that person's life.
Yeah.
I hate this whole thing of just having, because I think now it's even happening in our community. We have all these few people that are like our voice for the community. And I hate it because it puts pressure on people.
Yes.
And it puts such a toll on them. They become, and I think it's also the colonial project where, you have these one or two people that will show up on television to speak on our behalf.
Yeah.
And, and it's beautiful for them. It's a beautiful opportunity at some point, but it's also a very, very complicated and heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
Because now people are expecting so much from you.
You have to represent how many people.
Solved,
yeah.
And then let you have a bad day and you don't smile at them at that point in time. Oh my God.
He's so stuck up. He doesn't care about the community.
So stuck up. They don't care about anything. They're just pretending.
They do it for the white people.
You don't know the level of pressure that person is experiencing.
Yeah.
It's a burden to carry your whole entire community on your shoulders.
Absolutely.
Like, you are the token black person to speak all
You're the mouthpiece for everybody.
You know what I mean? And I hate that. I actually hate that. And I want to see more people speaking up for our community. I don't want to see the same faces.
No.
And that's why I'm like, let's start to expand beyond the advocacy space.
Yeah.
Let's start to get into other spaces and be influential in those areas. It doesn't always have to be specifically Black, African focused.
Yeah.
It can be, let's go into technology. Let's go into let's just be
in rooms. All of them. Let's just be in all of them.
All the rooms. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes when you get yourself in that room, sometimes you have confidence to challenge the table. Yeah. Because you know how you go in. But when people start to hand you those opportunities,
it's different.
They come with some level of, pressure on how you need to behave and things. And I've seen people in my life, I've seen people that I admire and love find themselves in positions of power from an outside perspective, but they are having the worst working life.
Yeah.
They're being bullied, they're being undermined, they're being disrespected. How can you be experiencing that behind the scenes and show up strong and really own your position? It's hard.
When you're going through that,
it's so hard.
Your brain is too consumed.
You're literally dying. You're drowning. This position doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
I've to some extent have experienced some levels of that even in my own PhD, where I feel like, I think at the beginning, even owning that I was doing a PhD felt awkward for me for multiple reasons. Because
why? Isn't that why people do it? I'm doing a PhD. Sorry, I'm busy with my PhD.
I wish I had that attitude. I swear, I even felt weird writing it in my bio on Instagram for the longest time.
Doctor to be.
I couldn't even put it in because I'm like, I feel like I'm being a fraud because I'm like, I'm struggling in this PhD. I'm fighting for my life.
Yeah.
And then you want me to be there, I'm like, PhD, do a PhD. So great. So cool. I feel so smart.
The community needs you.
I'm dying. I'm confused. I'm lost. You know? So it took me some time to own the space that I was now occupying.
Yeah.
And I think it's still a work in progress in a way. And then on top of that, when you experience other really challenging things in your journey that disempower you, now you're even like, the title means absolutely nothing because you're fighting battles, small battles,
daily,
left, right, center, and you don't know how to I still, I guess, represent that kind of highlight, because I'm not very good at being a hypocrite. Yeah,
I love that. Yes, I don't want to anyway.
So when I feel like when I can't be authentically 100% transparent about something, I will just be quiet. Because I'm like, I'm just going to keep quiet about this because I don't actually yet know how to be true to myself in this space. And I feel like that's how I have felt for a long time in this kind of academia world. Yeah. And I think it's still, and a big part of it is because the things that I want to do in academia and the things that and the way that I want to learn and things that I want to learn are not easily accessible, and the people to learn from are not easily accessible.
In Australia or in general?
In Australia.
Yeah.
And so it makes it hard. The academic that I want to be in my mind is different. Like I want to really explore how do we decolonize our methodology. I want to bring in a fresh new perspective.
Yeah.
But to do that, you need to find mentors who have done that in their journey.
Yeah.
Who know how to empower you when you start to write from an autoethnographic perspective. And like, keep tapping into that perspective. Okay, explore that a little bit more because they've done it themselves.
Yeah.
They can transfer that knowledge to you and equip you and help you in that journey. But when you don't have those people, it's just kind of, you have nothing.
Figuring it, it's just vibes. This feels right. Yeah. Maybe over here.
Like, you rise and you're like, sounds about right.
Yeah.
This would do. And then you gotta advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
When you have supervisors who are not of the same background, who don't have that similar kind of lens.
Yeah.
Now you gotta advocate for something that you're unsure of.
Yeah.
So it becomes this. You know, it's hard. It's really hard.
There you go again. You have PhD students and married people go like
but
this.
It's good. It's good hard. Nothing good comes easy.
Yeah, that's what the married people say. Okay, I know you've heard this in the same context. It's so hard, but it's so worth it. You know, I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Okay, maybe let's not even think about it even from just you as a person.
Yeah.
You know, being you is hard. If you really think about it, like the amount of times you have to motivate yourself, the amount of times you have to build up your confidence to show up in the world and be who you want to be, the amount of times you have to try and figure out what does the authentic me look like. Yeah, that's a lot of work that sometimes we don't realize we're actually doing. Yeah, you know, and there are times where we're so drained and do not know how to do these things and how to be our best version of ourselves. And so that kind of work is a part of anything that you do in life. And so if we can put it in a marriage context, yes, there's work to be done. But even on just this personal level, there's work to be done. There's always going to be work to be done. Yeah. If you want quality things, ultimately, there's work to be done. And so maybe we need to change our attitude towards the work that needs to be done. You know? And get excited about working. Get excited about the work that needs to be done.
Ew, no. I was with you that you said get excited about work. No. I want to rest. I want to be on the beach.
You want to rest?
On the beach.
Oh my gosh. But this is the plague of this generation. Everybody wants to relax.
Yeah, we're tired. What do you mean? Went through a pandemic. What else? We went through a pandemic. And Black Lives Matter globally. Come on now.
But if we're tired, what's going to happen in the next 20 years if we're tired?
Have you met the next generation anyway? Have you met them? The future's not that bright. I'm kidding. I joke. Anyway, on that note, closing remarks. What is one thing, I always close with this one, what is one thing you think everyone should know, whether it's about life, research, being African and Australian, anything? What is one thing that you would want people to, how I phrased it, what is one piece of knowledge you think everyone should have in their toolbox?
Ooh, okay. One thing that everyone should have in their toolbox. I think be a student of life.
Of course you would say that.
Sounds so educational.
Literally, like the PhD student said, be a student of life. Anyway, yes.
I cannot find this. Oh my goodness. I need to really uneducate myself.
No, we love it. Yes, be a student of life.
Be a student of life, because I say this because when you approach life from with an attitude to learn, it makes it a little bit easier for you. Yeah. It makes it a little bit, because I think the moment we think we've mastered life, that's where it becomes difficult. Yeah. The moment we're trying to kind of cling on to our really kind of static ways of understanding the world, the more we actually lose grip of it all. Yeah. But if we can let go and allow ourselves to learn life as it happens. Yeah. Because I think when I was young, I was very hard on myself. Oh gosh, that inner voice was nasty. Yeah. I was very relatable. Like, I did not have a lot of grace for myself until I experienced things that were so difficult that I'm like, grace for myself is what's going to save me. Get out of here sane. Yeah. If I keep critiquing and questioning and wanting to be the best and wanting to be this, I'm not going to learn anything. I'm just putting myself under pressure. Yeah. Nothing is going to be achieved. at least not in the way that I would like to achieve it.
Yeah.
So if I can just slow down, have grace towards myself, be okay to not know things.
Yes.
Because I think the wisest people amongst us are the people who are willing to say, I actually don't know the answer to that. But I'm willing to learn. Yeah. I'm willing to figure out answers with you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think at the beginning when you asked me about myself, I'm like, the person I am now is a work in progress. Because life has humbled me. PhD has humbled me. PhD, I came in.
You're like, I can do it. I'm sat. I'm on the floor.
I'm like this. I'm like, okay. Should I get up? No, stay down. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So that, I think as I've started.
But you guys should still do it. So,
exactly, still do my PhD. So, I think that's something that's really helping me a lot.
Yeah.
Just that attitude of learning.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think not just be a student of life, learn how to say no.
Ooh.
Learn how to say no to, you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to be everything. You don't have to be advocating for everybody and everything in the community. Stop. Like, I just don't want young people to feel like they have to be fighting for this community so hard.
Yeah, fighting every battle.
Have your dreams. Let them be different and versatile and wild and, just figure out who are you authentically.
Yeah.
And then just hone into that.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's what's going to help us kind of deal with some of the bigger issues that we're experiencing in our community, so that we're not occupying the same small spaces and staying there and being labeled like that, but we're stepping out and we're in different rooms, in different spaces, contributing our unique perspective and speaking on behalf of our brothers and sisters wherever they may be, and also holding the next generation to bring them into those rooms as well with us.
Those of you who like to close the doors behind you, stop it.
Please stop it.
Stop doing that.
Looking good.
Okay? You're not the magical black person who they have allowed into the room. Leave the door open and let the rest of us through. Thank you.
Come on. I love that.
On that note.
I
was like, what you said was beautiful. And then I came in with that.
No, that's nice.
The aggressive.
I love that because people be locking doors.
Like, for what reason? And then you die in the room. And then what? Like, you're the only person to have entered the room? Like.
No, because sometimes being the only black person in the room makes them visible.
Yeah, this is true.
And they don't want to lose that visibility. But that's the dangerous thing. You shouldn't be so proud to be so visible because you're black.
Yeah.
You should be visible because you're great.
Yes. I love that. On that note, let's finish it there because this could get messy. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation.